My child, stop scrolling and remain here for a moment, because what you are about to hear has already begun unfolding in the unseen places of your life. Something reached the ears of your soulmate, something they were never supposed to hear, something that was spoken when no one believed they were listening, and from the instant those words entered their heart, everything inside them began to change. They have tried to continue with their day as though nothing happened. They have answered people, walked through familiar rooms, and carried on with ordinary responsibilities, but their spirit has not returned to normal. A single revelation has disturbed the silence they had built around their feelings for you, and now a decision they thought they could postpone is moving closer with every passing moment. Do not leave yet, because the words they heard were not meaningless gossip, and they were not an accidental collection of sentences that will soon be forgotten. What reached them carried your name, your story, and a truth about your heart that they had never fully understood. For a long time, they believed they knew why you became distant, why you stopped showing certain emotions, and why your connection seemed to fall into silence whenever it was about to become something deeper. They created explanations in their mind. They told themselves that perhaps you no longer cared. They wondered whether someone else had taken their place. They questioned whether the bond they felt was real or merely something they wanted to believe. But now they have heard something that has forced them to look at every memory again. The strange part is that you did not arrange for this truth to reach them. You did not send anyone to defend you. You did not ask heaven to expose what had been hidden. You may have even accepted that they would never understand what truly happened inside you. Yet there are moments when what has been concealed for too long begins to move toward the light, not because human beings planned it, but because the season of misunderstanding has reached its end. The conversation your soulmate overheard was never meant for them. Their presence was unnoticed. Their silence protected them from being discovered. And as they listened, a door opened inside their heart that they had spent a long time trying to keep closed. At first, they heard only fragments. A familiar voice mentioned something from your past. Another voice responded with a detail that seemed impossible to ignore. Your soulmate did not intend to remain there, but then your name was spoken, and every instinct inside them told them not to move. Their breathing became quieter. Their attention sharpened. Something within them whispered that the next few moments would answer a question they had carried for longer than anyone knew. They stood still, listening as the conversation revealed that your silence was not rejection, that your distance was not a lack of love, and that the choice you made long ago may have been made to protect them rather than abandon them. This is where their world began to shift. They had spent months, perhaps even years, interpreting your actions from the outside. They saw what you did, but they never knew what it cost you. They noticed when you stepped back, but they did not know how many nights you wanted to reach out. They remembered the moment you seemed emotionally unavailable, but they did not understand the battle taking place beneath your calm expression. What they heard has now shown them that while they believed you had forgotten them, you may have been carrying them quietly through a season in which you were barely able to carry yourself. Stay with this message, because the revelation did not end there. The person speaking began to describe a moment your soulmate knew nothing about, a moment when you were asked what you truly wanted, when you had the opportunity to choose the easier path, and when your answer involved them. You did not make a public declaration. You did not demand recognition. You simply spoke from a place of honesty, believing the words would remain private. You admitted that there was someone you could not erase from your heart, someone whose presence had changed the way you understood love, patience, and destiny. You may not have said everything perfectly, but the meaning was clear. Even when you tried to move forward, something within you continued to remember them. Your soulmate felt their chest tighten when they heard this. It was not because they doubted the speaker. It was because the truth contradicted the story they had been telling themselves. They had believed they were the only ones still thinking about the connection. They had blamed themselves for being unable to let go. They had wondered why certain songs, places, dates, and dreams continued to pull their attention toward you. They thought their heart was holding on to something that no longer existed. But now, without warning, they were hearing evidence that the connection had never been one-sided. For a few seconds, they wanted to step forward and reveal that they were listening. They wanted to ask questions immediately. They wanted to hear every detail without pretending to be absent. But fear stopped them, not the fear of you, but the fear of what the truth might require them to do. It is easier to remain distant when a person believes they were never loved. It is easier to protect pride when rejection seems certain. It is easier to avoid a difficult conversation when there appears to be nothing left to save. But what happens when the reason for staying away suddenly disappears? What happens when the heart realizes that the door it mourned may never have been completely closed? This is the question now following your soulmate everywhere. Since hearing those words, they have been replaying moments they once judged too quickly. They remember the way you looked at them before turning away. They remember a message that seemed brief but carried an emotion they did not recognize at the time. They remember the pause in your voice when they mentioned moving on. They remember how you tried to appear supportive even when something in your eyes revealed pain. These memories are returning with new meaning, and the more they examine them, the more they realize that they may have misunderstood the deepest parts of your story. But listen closely, because there is another layer to what they heard, and this is the part that has shaken them most. The conversation did not only reveal that you cared. It revealed why you believed you had to hide it. Someone spoke of a promise you made, a responsibility you carried, or a situation that convinced you that loving them openly would create trouble in their life. You feared becoming a burden. You feared asking them to wait through a season you could not explain. You feared that if they saw the full weight upon your heart, they would sacrifice their own peace trying to rescue you. So you chose silence, hoping they would eventually find happiness, even if that happiness did not include you. Your soulmate had never imagined this. They thought your distance was coldness, but now it looks like sacrifice. They thought your silence was indifference, but now it feels like protection. They thought you stopped fighting for the connection because it did not matter enough, but now they are beginning to see that you may have stepped back because it mattered too much. This understanding has brought both comfort and sorrow. Comfort, because they were not foolish for feeling the bond. Sorrow, because so much time may have been lost to assumptions neither of you knew how to correct. Something in them is now asking why you had to carry this alone. They are wondering why you did not trust them with the truth. They are asking whether they made you feel unsafe, whether they appeared too fragile, or whether their own actions convinced you that honesty would drive them away. They are not only thinking about what you did, they are examining themselves. This is important, because before now, they placed the entire story upon your choices. They rarely considered the ways their hesitation, mixed signals, or emotional walls may have contributed to the distance. But the words they overheard have become a mirror, and they can no longer avoid what it is showing them. My child, you may have felt a shift recently without understanding its origin. Perhaps your thoughts of them suddenly became stronger. Perhaps you woke from a dream in which they were trying to speak. Perhaps an old memory returned with unusual clarity, or you felt an unexplainable pressure in your heart as though someone was reaching toward you from far away. This does not mean you should abandon wisdom or chase every emotion. It means the hidden story between you is entering a different stage. The silence that once protected both hearts may no longer be serving its purpose. Your soulmate is standing at the edge of a choice. They can pretend they heard nothing and return to the life they have built around uncertainty, or they can allow the truth to change the way they approach you. Neither option feels easy. If they remain silent, they know they may carry regret. If they reach out, they must risk hearing that the moment has passed. They are caught between the safety of not knowing and the possibility of discovering that the connection still has life. And even now, as these words find you, they are imagining how they would begin the conversation. They have considered sending a simple message, something ordinary enough to protect their pride. They have thought about asking how you are, pretending the question carries no deeper meaning. They have opened your contact, looked at your name, and then closed it again. They have written words and erased them. They have pictured your reaction. Would you be surprised? Would you respond warmly? Would you ask why they waited so long? Would you finally tell them what you never felt able to say? Every possible outcome is moving through their mind, but one possibility has become stronger than all the others, the possibility that you may still be waiting for honesty. Do not misunderstand this. Waiting does not mean putting your life on hold or surrendering your peace to another person's decision. You have already learned too much to return to the version of yourself that accepted confusion as love. You are being prepared for clarity, not another cycle of emotional uncertainty. If they come forward, it cannot be with half-truths and temporary courage. Their heart is being pressed toward sincerity. They must speak not only about what they heard, but also about what they felt, what they feared, and why they allowed silence to become the language between you. There is a reason this revelation reached them now and not earlier. Had they heard it in a previous season, they might have responded with pride. They might have used the information to gain control, demand explanations, or prove that they were right. But pain has changed them. Time has softened certain parts of their heart. Disappointments have taught them that real connection cannot survive where honesty is constantly delayed. They are beginning to understand that love is not measured only by intensity, it is measured by the courage to communicate, the humility to admit mistakes, and the patience to rebuild trust without forcing an outcome. Still, they are not fully ready. There is one detail from the conversation they cannot stop thinking about. It was spoken quietly, almost as though the person revealing it regretted saying too much. Your soulmate nearly missed it, but once they understood the meaning, everything else faded into the background. The speaker mentioned that you had recently made a decision, one that could change whether this connection remains possible. They did not explain the decision completely. They only said that you were preparing to close a chapter, and that after a certain point, there might be no way to return to what once existed. Those words created urgency inside your soulmate. Until that moment, they assumed there would always be more time. They believed they could wait until they felt completely confident. They imagined that whenever they were ready, you would still be available to hear what they had to say. But now they are confronting a truth many hearts understand too late: opportunities do not always remain open simply because feelings remain unfinished. A person can still care and choose peace. A person can still remember and decide to move forward. A person can still love deeply and recognize that waiting without clarity has become too painful. Your soulmate is now afraid that this may be what you have decided. They wonder whether you have finally reached the point where you will release the hope of hearing from them. They wonder whether someone has entered your life who sees what they failed to acknowledge. They wonder whether the quiet strength they always admired in you is now carrying you away from the place where they left you waiting. This fear is not meant to torment them. It is awakening them to the cost of continued hesitation. And yet, there is more. They also heard that your decision was not made from anger. You were not seeking revenge. You were not trying to make them jealous or punish them for the past. You were simply exhausted from carrying unanswered questions. You wanted to stop living between hope and disappointment. You wanted to create room for a future that did not depend upon someone else overcoming their fear. When your soulmate heard this, something inside them broke open. They realized that while they had been protecting themselves from possible rejection, you had been enduring the pain of their absence. For the first time, they understood that silence is also a decision. Not speaking communicates something, even when it is not what the heart intends to say. Not reaching out creates distance, even when love remains. Not choosing can eventually become a choice made by time itself. This understanding has left them restless. They can no longer comfort themselves with the idea that they never intentionally hurt you. They are beginning to recognize that unintentional pain is still pain, and that sincere feelings do not erase the consequences of delayed courage. My child, there were nights when you questioned your own intuition. You felt that the connection had meaning, yet the visible circumstances suggested otherwise. You sensed that they cared, yet their actions left you uncertain. You prayed for a clear sign, but what arrived was often another period of waiting. You may have asked whether you imagined the entire bond, whether your heart had created a story because it wanted comfort. But heaven saw the moments you never described to anyone, the tears you wiped away quickly, the messages you refused to send, the prayers in which you asked not for possession, but for truth. Truth is now moving, but it may not arrive in the form you once expected. It may come through a confession that is imperfect. It may begin with awkward words and trembling honesty. It may require you to listen without immediately deciding what the future must become. The purpose of revelation is not always instant reunion. Sometimes it is freedom. Sometimes it is closure. Sometimes it is the first step toward rebuilding something on a foundation stronger than before. And sometimes it reveals that two people were not separated by a lack of love, but by fear, timing, and the belief that silence was safer than vulnerability. Your soulmate is beginning to see this, but they are also wrestling with another question: who was speaking, and why did that person know so much about you? They recognized one of the voices, but the other voice was unexpected. It belonged to someone they never imagined would understand your private struggle. This person had witnessed something your soulmate had not. They had seen you at a moment when your strength failed, when the truth about your feelings surfaced without warning. They knew the reason you withdrew, and they knew what you had been protecting. The identity of this person matters, because your soulmate once believed they stood between the two of you. They may have viewed this person with suspicion. They may have assumed this individual encouraged you to move on or contributed to your distance. But what your soulmate overheard has revealed the opposite. This person was not trying to keep you apart. They had been urging you to tell the truth. They had repeatedly told you that your soulmate deserved to know what was really happening. You were the one who hesitated, not because you wanted deception, but because you believed disclosure would complicate their life. Now your soulmate is questioning every judgment they made about this person. They are realizing that someone they quietly blamed may have been one of the few people defending the connection. This has humbled them. It has shown them how easily fear can turn uncertainty into accusation. When the heart lacks facts, it often fills the empty spaces with the most painful explanation. Your soulmate did this more than once. So did you. Both of you created stories in the silence, and those stories gradually became walls. But walls built from assumptions can fall quickly when truth enters the room. Your soulmate can feel those walls weakening now. They are remembering a particular day when you almost told them everything. You began a sentence, then changed the subject. You looked as though you were carrying words too heavy to release. At the time, they thought you were hiding another relationship, another plan, or another reason to leave. Now they understand that you may have been trying to confess how deeply you cared while also explaining why you believed you could not stay close. This memory has become unbearable for them because they remember how they responded. Perhaps they became distant. Perhaps they acted uninterested to avoid appearing vulnerable. Perhaps they made a joke, ended the conversation, or said something that convinced you the truth would not be welcomed. They wish they could return to that moment and behave differently. They wish they had asked one more question. They wish they had said, "You can tell me. I will listen." But the past does not reopen simply because regret becomes clear. It can only teach the heart how to respond when another opportunity appears. And another opportunity may be nearer than you think. There is a reason you have felt an unusual stillness around this connection. Beneath the stillness, movement is taking place. Your soulmate is not merely thinking about you, they are gathering information, revisiting old conversations, and trying to understand whether what they heard is accurate. They do not want to approach you with assumptions again. They have quietly asked a question to someone who knows you. They did not reveal everything they overheard, but they mentioned a detail and watched the person's reaction. That reaction confirmed more than words could have. The person paused. Their expression changed. They tried to choose their response carefully, but your soulmate saw the truth before it was spoken. You had been carrying something real. The connection had affected you more deeply than anyone admitted. And there was indeed a reason you believed stepping away was necessary. Your soulmate left that conversation with their heart racing. What began as an accidental revelation was becoming impossible to dismiss. Now they are facing the truth that the next move belongs to them. For a long time, they waited for you to break the silence. They believed that because you stepped away, you should be the one to return. But now they understand that you may have already tried in ways they failed to recognize. They are seeing the moments when you reached emotionally, even if you did not use direct words. They are seeing the chances they ignored because fear told them to remain guarded. They can no longer place the entire responsibility upon you. Their soul is being challenged to choose courage over control. Control says, wait until you know the outcome. Courage says, speak because the truth deserves a voice. Control says, protect your image. Courage says, protect what is honest. Control says, do not move unless you are guaranteed success. Courage says, do not let fear write the ending. Your soulmate is standing between these voices now, and the decision they make will reveal how much they have grown. But before they reach out, something else is about to happen. The person whose conversation they overheard has realized that someone may have been nearby. A small detail was noticed, a sound, a movement, a door that was not positioned as it had been before. Suspicion has entered the situation. The speaker is now wondering how much was heard and whether the truth has already begun traveling toward you. This changes everything, because what your soulmate heard was only part of the revelation. There was more spoken after they walked away. A final truth was shared in that room, one that your soulmate did not hear, but another person did. That final truth concerns the decision you have made, the date connected to it, and the message you once prepared but never sent. Someone now possesses words from your heart that could reach your soulmate before either of you is ready. You thought those words were gone. You believed they had been deleted, destroyed, or safely hidden where no one would ever find them. But they still exist. And in those words, you revealed not only why you left, but what you hoped your soulmate would do if they ever learned the truth. At this very moment, the person holding that message is deciding whether to remain silent or place it directly into your soulmate's hands. Your soulmate senses that something more is coming, but they do not know how powerful it will be. They believe what they overheard has already changed everything. They have no idea that the greatest revelation has not reached them yet.